What up, my channel? Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie, and you're watching. What's up, y'all? Today we are going to be discussing a very controversial book, and that is Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin, who burns billionaire J.K. Rowling alive. Before we hop into the nitty and the gritty of J.K. Rowling being burned alive in this YA horror book, let us first talk about Manhunt, the book in question, and discuss what it is about. Manhunt is a dystopian apocalyptic novel where people who have a certain amount of testosterone are turned into monstrous beasts, leaving only cisgender women and trans-binary and trans-non-binary people alive. The premise is somewhat similar to The Walking Dead and Why the Last Man, where the real danger comes from each other. So while yes, the survivors of this apocalypse have to battle these monstrous flesh-eating zombies or whatever, they also are being hunted by TERFs, which stand for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists, who refer to themselves as the Legion, and their sole mission in life is to murder trans folk and also anybody who supports them. That alone led to a lot of pre-release hate as well as post-release review bombing, which is essentially where a group of people not necessarily affiliated take to Goodreads and leave a bunch of one-star negative reviews of a book just based off of its premise alone and not necessarily the literary merit of the novel itself. And on Amazon, a person writes, "Ignore the one-star reviews. This book is being bombed with one-star reviews because it is written by a trans woman. The terms misogyny and women-hating are being thrown around because cis women can't handle the fact that a trans woman has written one of the best dystopian books we've seen of the last century. If you want a gruesome, harrowing, but also uplifting and unapologetic story that's queer, has a beautiful range of characters, has fat rep, sex positivity, and has no sympathy or empathy for trans folks, this book is 100% for you." Gretchen Felker Martin is a force to be reckoned with, and she's changing this genre by punching one TERF at a time. I want to first establish that people were hating on this book well before they found out that J.K. Rowling was burned alive in the novel. That is my dog panting. Are you okay? You want some water? Let's go get you some water.
1 hour later.
But then TERFs found out that their Queen Roach Supreme is burned alive in this book, and they all lost their shit. The review bombing really took off. The author tweets, "Scum believable. I wouldn't normally ask this, but Manhunt has been subjected to a small-scale review bombing ahead of its actual release. And if a few dozen of you or so were willing to level out the playing field, I'd be very appreciative. I ask solely because Goodreads has created a very easily gamed system, too often driven solely by uninformed outrage and disconnected from actual books themselves. The site has also left up dishonest and homonym attacks aimed at me with no pretense at all at being reviews, despite repeated flagging." Manhunt is supposed to be a book that challenges everyone, both cis and trans. It has been described as one of the most horror gore-tastic books that have been written. It is equally gory and brutal, and it serves the purpose of making the reader very deeply uncomfortable. Why is this important? This is important because the sole purpose of the book is to provide social commentary surrounding gender and the ways that the end of the world as we know it would impact trans people specifically. But what is really interesting about all of this is that people are upset not about the radical gendered constructs and the challenging of the gender binary as well as the systems and structures that exist in support of it, but because a cis female billionaire dies in the novel. Now, let us talk about the scene where her death takes place. A lot of people assume that this scene involves J.K. Rowling having dialogue being actually present physically within the story and being lit on fire while people dance, clap, and sing. That's actually not what happens. According to an article by Global News, in the book, the characters at the campfire are talking about the fates of various celebrities during the apocalypse, and Rowling is described as dying in an inferno at her Scottish castle. It then goes on to cite that Rowling, who is 56 years old, has claimed that transgender people erode the concept of womanhood and are offering cover to predators like few before it. Why is this important? I'm going to offer my personal perspective on all of this controversy about whether or not it is okay to kill off an author or any kind of public figure person who actually exists in real life in your novel. But first, I have to address some tweets that are really important for context. The author tweets, "J.K. Rowling dies in Manhunt," and someone comments, "No spoilers, I haven't read it yet."
Which literally fucking kills me.
And then Total Tim comments, "Is she gonna sue you from inside her keep?" Personally, I was on the ground rolling about that. Not a keep. Why is this relevant? The book is providing social commentary on the ways that billionaires and millionaires, the top 1% of the nation, will be protected from any kind of apocalyptic situation. You already have millionaires and billionaires bragging about setting up apocalypse bunkers, which actually do exist. This is especially important because they are then getting to shelter themselves from the apocalypse that they very most likely have created themselves. It's pretty well assumed that when the apocalypse happens, it's going to be humanity destroying itself. It's going to be war, it's going to be pollution. Honestly, those seem like the most likely scenarios in which the world would end, not necessarily because of a comet, or anything that human beings don't have control over. It's pretty well established and believed by so many individuals that humanity is going to be the death of humanity. So it is extra ironic that billionaires and millionaires are the ones preparing for the apocalypse that they themselves will be responsible for. This is just an extreme example of one of the many ways that the country's top 1% are able to insulate themselves against the harm that they bring to the rest of the population, to the middle class, to the lower class, and to those who are completely economically disenfranchised. J.K. Rowling is one of those people. J.K. Rowling, as an incredibly wealthy white woman, would plausibly be able to hole herself up in this event. And it doesn't have to be about race. It's anybody who has a significant amount of money is automatically going to be more likely to be protected. In these situations, this has been explored in almost every single movie where an apocalypse takes place. There is almost always some sort of social commentary on the ways that the wealthy are able to kind of distance themselves from the situation, either by flight or escape or things like that. So the fact that she dies after a fire accidentally is set in her own castle and burns alive is direct commentary on the various ways that people who are participatory in the destruction of the world, whether it's the world's moral values, right? J.K. Rowling's values are not sound, opposes the rights of several groups of people, not just trans people, and therefore her moral corruption is something that is corrosive to the entire world. And then you also have individuals who are unsound in other ways. And it is especially important to consider that this book is about several types of violence. It is about violence against cis women, violence against trans women, violence against trans people. It's about the violence of the world, and there are critiques within the text for people who are both cis and trans. So it is really important to frame discussions about J.K. Rowling being burned alive in this book within the various ways that wealthy individuals use their money and their power and their influence in order to protect themselves from their own mistakes as well as humanity. I think it's really important to have dialogue about that when you are forming your own opinion about J.K. Rowling being burned alive in this novel. A lot of people are taking it at face value and being like,
okay, well, this is about the author getting revenge.
And while I'm certain it was cathartic for the author in several ways, that wasn't the point that she was trying to make. She wasn't just saying, okay, well, I don't agree with J.K. Rowling, so I'm gonna kill her in this book. J.K. Rowling is a symbol. She is a stand-in for all of the wealthy individuals who do this, who are going to be able to wall themselves up in their castle when the apocalypse comes, the same way that they wall themselves up in their own castles today. The NPR published an incredibly controversial article by author Liam McBain titled "In Manhunt, a Virus Turns Anyone with Enough Testosterone into a Feral Beast." This article was heavily criticized because it praises this controversial book, and a lot of critics didn't appreciate it. The author writes, Felker Martin constructs the monsters of the novel beautifully. The men are matted filthy, the skin flaking and greasy, mouths dripping dark, nameless fluid. They gulp down meat in chunks like an alligator horking down a fish. They exist only to consume flesh and to rape, running in packs to chase down anyone that they can smell on the wind. The author goes on to write that Manhunt is a paragon of body horror, and its numerous sex scenes are no exception. The prose is simultaneously erotic and gruesome. Felker Martin writes into dissociation and the dysphoric insecurities of her characters. In one of Felker Martin's more sadistic choices, Beth is relegated to the comfort division of a bunker. In order to keep her place there, she's forced to work a job as a daddy, a trans woman dressed in boy drag, pretending to be a man for the sexual pleasure of cis straight women. Thinking about it now makes me full body cringe. More than just being upsetting to read, the moment illuminates the treatment of trans women as sexual objects, regardless of how it affects them, even if it looks different from how this plays out in our world. This is a woman's body, Beth reminds herself after one of her clients leaves. The band of TERFs called the Legion are the true villains of the book. In one scene, a Legion squad breaks into a house occupied by a group of trans women. The TERFs capture them, line them up in the back of the house, and take aim. The point Felker Martin is making with the Legion. While everything is heightened within the apocalyptic setting, enforcing gender kills people. That's true today. Manhunt just takes it to an extreme, and today's gender-critical feminists, as gender theorist Judith Butler has written, are buying into fascism. The TERFs in the book, taken to an ideological end, were vital in amping up the core horrors of the book. The fear of not knowing what will happen to you when someone realizes you're trans, because they think trans people, trans women especially, already are monsters. Fear of a forced detransition, an irreversible one, that takes your entire personhood away. Felker Martin brought these daily terrors to life in a truly bone-chilling way. Even in places where it stretched the imagination, the book was grounded in the bodies of Felker Martin's protagonists and in the logistics of their survival. Disgustingly rendered and brilliantly imagined, Manhunt was gripping as much as it was repulsive. It's rare to read a horror novel that truly tests my limits in a mostly pleasurable way, and Manhunt delivers. It's a challenge, and I hope more readers take. Correction. The author says 3 points of clarification. Rowling is not a principal villain. She is mentioned only once in a passing anecdote. She dies when the castle collapses on her, not in a fire. Oh my god, okay. The book's TERF antagonists are the Maryland Women's Legion, not the Knights of J.K. Rowling. The author explains she took her rich TERF friends to a castle in Scotland where one of the characters flips in the middle of the night and starts ripping into the other guests before someone knocks over a lamp or something, leaving people to burn alive before finally the whole castle collapsed.
Okay, so does someone burn alive or not?
So that's going to do it for this video. I would love to have more dialogue and discussion in the comment section down below. If you made it this far in the video, leave an emoji in the comment section down below showing what weapon you would use in the apocalypse. Or you can just type out what weapon that you would use. If you want more content from me, I do have a Patreon where I make content exclusively for my patrons. This month's video is me talking about unpopular books that I want to read. I've also made videos talking about things that I hate about booktube. We're going to be watching Mean Girls this month, and it's just going to be a really fun time. Next month, we're doing an American Gods watch along, which I'm so geeked for. We're going to be watching the entire series together, but all my social media links will be in the description box below, including my link to my online bookstore, Pango, where you can get brand new books for $5 to $11. Until next time, stay safe, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and I hope to see you in my next video.